The accidental transformation. Nexus 9 floated in the cold void between the Thalassa and Rigel systems, a gleaming testament to interspecies cooperation. The cylindrical research station rotated slowly, generating artificial gravity for its inhabitants while solar panels extended like metal wings, drinking in the light of the distant stars. Inside, humans worked alongside a dozen alien species, researching everything from quantum physics to xenobiology. Vila Nixtai stumbled through the empty corridor, her violet skin glistening with sweat. As an Illyrian botanist, she was accustomed to the tropical climate of her homeworld, not the sterile, regulated atmosphere of Nexus 9. The station's environmental controls had malfunctioned again in the botanical section, leaving her dehydrated and suffering from a splitting headache that made her sensitive cranial ridges throb painfully. "Just need to make it to medical," she muttered, pressing a slender hand against the wall for support. At this late hour, most of the station personnel were asleep, leaving the corridors eerily silent except for the constant hum of life support systems. Vila's natural bioluminescent patterns pulsed weakly along her arms, reflecting her distress as pain stabbed behind her eyes. The medical bay doors slid open automatically, revealing an empty room. Dar. Harrington must have retired for the night, leaving only the medical AI to handle emergencies. Vila groaned and made her way to the dispensary, desperate for relief. "Computer, access my medical file," she croaked. "I need something for an Illyrian-compatible headache remedy." The AI's voice responded calmly, voice recognition failed. "Please provide identification." Vila cursed under her breath. The AI often struggled with non-human vocal patterns, especially when the speaker was distressed. She fumbled with her station ID badge, but in her disoriented state, it slipped from her fingers and skittered across the floor. "Forget it," she hissed, scanning the dispensary shelves. Her vision blurred, making it difficult to read the labels. Her headache was getting worse, and desperation clouded her judgment. On the counter, she spotted a small vial of clear liquid. Next to it was a half-written note, "Test sample, PT-7 combat." The rest was obscured by a datapad. In her pain-addled state, Vila made a fatal assumption. Point 7. Paratensil 7 was a common human painkiller that was safe for Illyrians. This must be a new formulation. Without further consideration, she uncapped the vial and downed its contents in one swift motion. The effect was instantaneous and nothing like pain relief. A searing heat erupted in her stomach and radiated outward through her veins like liquid fire. Vila doubled over, clutching the edge of the counter as her legs threatened to give way beneath her. Her bioluminescent patterns flared bright crimson, then electric blue, cycling through colors she didn't even know her body could produce. "What happening?" she gasped, as her muscles spasmed. The pain in her head was forgotten, replaced by an overwhelming rush of sensory input. The subtle scent of antiseptic in the air became overpowering. The soft lighting of the medical bay felt like daggers in her eyes. The constant background hum of the station's systems became a deafening roar. Then came the surge of energy, unlike anything she had ever experienced. Her heart raced, pumping what felt like molten metal through her body. Her muscles tensed and relaxed in rapid succession as though testing their new power. The room spun around her, and Vila collapsed to her knees, fighting to remain conscious. As the initial shock subsided, she became aware of something else, a heightened awareness, a predatory instinct that felt alien to her normally peaceful nature. Her senses had sharpened to an impossible degree. She could hear footsteps approaching from the corridor, could smell the distinct scent of human sweat and military-grade laundry detergent. The medical bay doors slid open, and Lieutenant Marcus Wolfe stepped in. Tall and broad-shouldered with dark hair cropped short according to military regulations, he was part of the station's security detail. "I heard a noise. Is everything all right in?" His words died in his throat as he took in the sight before him. Vila rose slowly to her feet, moving with a fluid grace that her body had never possessed before. Her violet skin now seemed to shimmer with subtle metallic undertones, and her bioluminescent patterns pulsed with hypnotic intensity. But it was her eyes that stopped Marcus cold. Formerly a soft amber, they now glowed with an intense golden light, pupils dilated into vertical slits like those of a predator. "Lieutenant," Vila's voice came out deeper than usual, with a resonant quality that seemed to vibrate in the air. "Something's happened to me." Marcus's hand instinctively moved toward his sidearm, but he hesitated. Despite her altered appearance, this was still Vila, the quiet botanist who sometimes joined the poker games in the recreation module. "Dr. Nixtai, what did you take?" Vila's heightened senses detected his elevated heart rate, the subtle tension in his muscles, the faint scent of adrenaline. Part of her, a new, primal part, found his fear intoxicating. She forced that thought aside, horrified by her own reaction. "A vial. On the counter." She pointed with a trembling hand. "I thought it was painkiller." Marcus approached the counter cautiously, never taking his eyes off Vila. He picked up the note and read it fully. Test sample, PT-7 Combat Enhancement Serum. For authorized testing only. His face paled. "You drank Prometheus?" "That's an experimental military-grade combat enhancement formula. It's not even approved for human testing yet, let alone alien physiology," Vila finished, a hysterical laugh bubbling up in her throat. "Wonderful." The lieutenant activated his comm unit. "Dr. Harrington, we have an emergency in medical. Dr. Nixtai has ingested the PT-7 sample." "Yes, all of it. You need to get here now." As Marcus spoke, Vila felt another wave of changes sweep through her body. The muscles in her arms and legs seemed to be rearranging themselves, becoming denser, more powerful. Her skin tingled as nanobots in the serum integrated with her cellular structure, enhancing everything from her nervous system to her skeletal density. "Lieutenant," she whispered, "something's happening. I can't control." Her words were cut short as pain lanced through her cranial ridges. The bony structures, normally just a decorative feature of Illyrian physiology, began to extend and sharpen into a crown-like formation. Her nails lengthened into claw-like protrusions, and her teeth ached as they sharpened to points. Marcus backed away, his hand now firmly on his weapon. "Dr. Nixtai, I need you to remain calm. Medical help is on the way." Vila tried to respond, but a sudden surge of aggression overwhelmed her. The predatory instinct that had been simmering beneath the surface erupted into a full-blown hunting drive. Her vision sharpened further, the world seeming to slow around her as her perception accelerated. She became acutely aware of Marcus as prey, his vulnerable throat, the pulsing artery she could see beneath his skin, the ease with which she could overpower him. "Run," she managed to growl through clenched teeth, fighting against her new instincts. "Lock down the medical bay. I'm not safe." To his credit, Marcus didn't hesitate. He backed toward the door, keeping his eyes on her as he triggered the emergency lockdown protocol. Alarms blared throughout the station as reinforced shutters began to descend over the medical bay doors and windows. Vila launched herself forward with inhuman speed, but not toward Marcus. Instead, she slammed her fist into the emergency containment button, sealing herself inside a transparent isolation chamber before the transformation could progress further. The last thing she saw before the chamber sealed was Marcus's shocked expression as the security shutters locked into place, separating them completely. Inside the isolation chamber, Vila fought to regain control of her mind as her body continued to change. The serum was rewriting her DNA in real time, creating a hybrid of Illyrian biology and enhanced human combat capabilities. Outside, she could hear the station erupting into chaos as the lockdown protocols engaged and emergency teams mobilized. Through the haze of her transformation, one thought remained clear in Vila's mind: whatever she was becoming, there would be no going back. Evolution and resolution. The isolation chamber's reinforced walls reflected Vila's distorted image back at her, a creature caught between two worlds. Her violet skin now had a metallic sheen, her once gentle amber eyes glowed with predatory intensity, and the crown of sharpened cranial ridges gave her the appearance of some ancient warrior queen. 6 hours had passed since she'd consumed the PT-7 serum, and the physical transformation had finally stabilized. But inside her mind, a war raged on. Jackson Harrington stood on the other side of the transparent barrier, his weathered face grave as he studied the readings on his tablet. At 63, he was the oldest human on Nexus 9 and the station's chief medical officer. His salt and pepper beard couldn't hide the deep frown lines that had formed since this crisis began. The nanobots have fully integrated with your cellular structure, he explained, not bothering to simplify the medical jargon. Vila was a scientist, she deserved the unvarnished truth. They've enhanced everything: muscle density, nervous system response time, sensory processing. Your Illyrian DNA has been augmented with what the military calls optimized human combat genetics. Vila pressed a clawed hand against the transparent wall. Can you reverse it? The silence that followed told her everything. The changes are permanent, Harrington finally admitted. The nanobots have rewritten your genetic code at a fundamental level. Removing them now would be like trying to remove the flour from baked bread. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. So I'm stuck as this predator? You're still you, Vila, Harrington insisted, though uncertainty clouded his eyes. Your brain chemistry has been altered, yes, but your core personality, your memories, they're intact. Inside the chamber, Vila paced with the fluid grace of a caged jungle cat. Each movement was precise, economical. Her new body felt simultaneously alien and more right than her old one had ever felt, and that terrified her. I wanted to attack Lieutenant Wolf, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. I saw him as prey, Jackson. I wanted to hunt him. Harrington nodded grimly. The PT-7 serum was designed to enhance aggressive instincts in human soldiers, to temporarily override their natural aversion to violence. In your Illyrian physiology, it seems to have triggered dormant predatory instincts that your species evolved beyond thousands of years ago. Wonderful, Vila muttered. My civilization spent millennia evolving beyond violence, and one human military cocktail sends me back to the Stone Age. The station-wide communication system crackled to life, interrupting their conversation. Commander Ortega's voice came through, tense and clipped. All personnel, this is not a drill. We have detected 3 unidentified vessels on approach. They are not responding to hails and have deployed jamming technology consistent with the Scylla raiders. Security teams to defensive positions. All non-essential personnel to emergency shelters. Harrington's face paled. The Scylla raiders. They've hit 3 research stations in this sector already. Vila's enhanced hearing picked up the distant sound of running footsteps, shouted orders, the unmistakable click of weapons being readied. Her new instincts stirred, but this time they didn't feel entirely wrong. If raiders were coming, perhaps her transformation had arrived at precisely the right moment. Let me out, she said, her golden eyes fixed on Harrington. The doctor stepped back. You're not stable yet. We don't know if you can control. The station has 12 security personnel against what will likely be 3 ships full of armed raiders, Vila interrupted. You need every advantage you can get. She flexed her clawed hands. I'm an advantage. Harrington hesitated, his ethical duty as a doctor warring with the reality of their situation. Finally, he sighed and entered the release code into his tablet. If you feel yourself losing control, I'll come back here immediately, Vila promised, though they both knew it was a lie. The isolation chamber hissed as the seal disengaged. Vila stepped out, and for the first time, Harrington seemed to truly grasp how much she had changed. She stood several inches taller than before, her posture perfectly balanced, every movement deliberate. The bioluminescent patterns along her arms pulsed with a slow, steady rhythm, like the beating heart of a predator at rest. I need to get to the command center, she said. As they hurried through the corridors, emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow that Vila's enhanced vision pierced with ease. Station personnel pressed themselves against walls as she passed, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. She could smell their fear, a new and disturbing ability, but somehow it strengthened her resolve rather than triggering her hunting instincts. The command center doors slid open to reveal controlled chaos. Commander Ortega, a compact woman with steel-gray hair and the bearing of someone who had weathered countless crises, stood at the central console. Lieutenant Wolf was at the security station, directing defense teams through his comm unit. Everyone froze when Vila entered. "What is she doing out of containment?" Ortega demanded, her hand instinctively moving toward the sidearm at her hip. "She's here to help," Harrington explained quickly. "The PT-7 has stabilized in her system. She has control." Wolf eyed Vila warily. "With all due respect, Doctor, you don't know that." "He's right," Vila admitted, moving closer to the tactical display. "But those raiders out there don't know what I've become either. That gives us an advantage." On the main view screen, 3 sleek black ships approached Nexus 9, their designs optimized for speed and stealth rather than head-on combat. The Scylla raiders weren't interested in destroying the station, they wanted its research data, its advanced technology, and any valuable personnel they could ransom or sell. "They're deploying boarding craft," Wolf reported. "ETA to breach, 3 minutes. Commander Ortega studied Vila for a long moment before nodding. "What do you propose, Dr. Nixtai?" "Let them board," Vila said, her voice carrying a new authority. "But on our terms. I can smell them, hear their heartbeats. They can't hide from me." The next few minutes passed in a blur of preparation. Security teams were repositioned to create deliberate weak points in the station's defense, bait for the raiders. Vila stood in shadow near the main boarding point, her bioluminescence dimmed to almost nothing, waiting with a patience that felt both new and ancient. When the first explosion rocked the station and the boarding tube attached with a metallic shriek, she didn't flinch. As the airlock was forced open and the first raiders poured through in their sleek combat armor, weapons raised, she remained perfectly still. Only when they had advanced past her position, confident in their superior numbers and technology, did she move. The first raider died before he understood what was happening. Vila's claws tore through his armor like paper, finding the vulnerable points with uncanny precision. The second managed to turn, firing wildly, but Vila was already elsewhere, moving faster than human reflexes could track. What followed wasn't combat in any conventional sense. It was a hunt, with Vila as the apex predator. She moved between shadows, striking and vanishing, using her enhanced senses to predict the raiders' movements before they made them. Their panicked communication filled her ears, cries of confusion, terror, increasingly desperate orders to fall back. When Lieutenant Wolf and his security team arrived at the breach point, they found 8 raiders incapacitated and the remainder retreating in disarray. Vila stood amid the chaos, breathing heavily, her claws stained with blood that wasn't her own. For a moment, the predatory light in her eyes made Wolf tense, but then recognition flickered across her face, and she was Vila again, changed, yes, but still herself. "There are more coming," she said simply. 2 more breach points. I can hear them." Wolf hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Lead the way." By the time the main raider force realized their advance teams had failed, it was too late. The combination of Vila's enhanced abilities and the station's security teams created an insurmountable defense. The raiders, accustomed to overwhelming their targets with superior numbers and aggression, found themselves outmatched at their own game. 2 hours after the initial breach, the raider ships disengaged and fled, leaving behind their dead and wounded. Nexus 9 had survived with minimal casualties, a miracle by any standard. In the aftermath, Vila sat alone in the observation dome, watching the stars. Her body ached with a pleasant fatigue, the lingering combat high finally fading. She heard footsteps approaching but didn't turn. Her enhanced senses had already identified Commander Ortega by her stride and scent. "The station council has been in emergency session," Ortega said without preamble, sitting beside Vila on the curved bench. "Discussing you." Vila's bioluminescent patterns flickered with amusement. I imagine I've created quite the ethical dilemma. You have, Ortega agreed. Dr. Harrington argues that we should destroy all remaining samples of PT-7 and delete the research. He says it's too dangerous, especially now that we've seen what it can do to non-human physiology. And what do you think, Commander? Ortega was silent for a long moment. I think you saved a lot of lives today. But I also saw something I never expected to see from an Illyrian. A monster? Vila asked softly. A warrior, Ortega corrected. Your people gave up warfare millennia ago. You evolved beyond it, or so the history texts claim. Yet when it mattered, that ancient part of you remembered how to fight. Vila stared at her clawed hands. The changes weren't just physical, she could feel new instincts, new awareness permeating her consciousness. The serum didn't create anything that wasn't already there, she admitted. It just awakened it. Which brings us to the Council's decision, Ortega continued. The PT-7 research will be locked down, classified at the highest level. No more testing without extreme safeguards. She paused. As for you, they're offering choices. Vila turned to face the commander. Choices? Dar. Harrington believes he can develop a partial antidote. It won't reverse the physical changes, but it could suppress the more aggressive aspects of your transformation. You could return to your botanical research, live a life that's closer to what you had before. The offer hung in the air, tempting in its promise of normalcy. Vila considered it carefully, trying to imagine returning to her quiet life among the plants, pretending she was still the same person she had been before. And the alternative, she finally asked. Stay as you are, Ortega said simply. Accept a new position as special security consultant. Help us understand the changes the serum has created, and in the process, perhaps rediscover parts of Illyrian heritage that have been lost to time. Outside the observation dome, the stars wheeled slowly past as Nexus 9 continued its eternal rotation. Somewhere out there was Vila's homeworld, where Illyrians lived peaceful, contemplative lives, having long ago locked away the primal parts of themselves that she now embodied. My people won't accept me like this, she said softly. I'm everything they've spent generations trying to evolve beyond. Perhaps, Ortega acknowledged. Or perhaps you're a reminder of something they need to remember, that peace is a choice, not an inevitability. That being capable of violence isn't the same as being defined by it. Vila's golden eyes reflected the starlight as she considered her future. The predator inside her no longer felt like an alien presence but a part of herself that had always been there, waiting. The PT-7 hadn't changed who she was, it had simply revealed a deeper truth about who she could be. I want to stay as I am, she decided. Not because I enjoy violence, but because I need to understand this part of myself, this part of my species' past that we've tried to forget. Ortega nodded, seemingly unsurprised by the decision. The council suspected you might choose this path. There will be conditions, of course. Regular psychological evaluations. Training to help you maintain control. And you'll need to accept that some people, human and alien alike, will fear you now. They should, Vila said, a hint of fang showing as she smiled. Fear is how prey survives when predators are near. But they should also know that I choose which hunts to pursue. She extended her hand, the claws retracted now by conscious effort. I accept the position, Commander. As they shook hands, sealing the agreement, Vila felt the last of her doubts fade away. The universe was a dangerous place, the raider attack had proven that much. Perhaps what Nexus 9 needed wasn't another gentle botanist but someone who remembered how to bare their teeth when threats appeared. 1 month later, the PT-7 research was officially classified and locked away in the station's most secure vault. But its most successful test subject walked freely through Nexus 9's corridors, a living bridge between civilization and wildness, peace and violence, past and future. And when the next threat came, as it inevitably would in the vast, uncharted frontiers of space, Vila Nixtai would be ready, golden eyes gleaming in the darkness, neither entirely Illyrian nor human, but something new and powerful that the universe had never seen before.